houses. He did
people. It's a service industry.
This is okay. You better quit while you're ahead, Hannity, right now. You better quit while you're ahead. All right.
Have a good show.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Welcome to the Ingraham Angle from Washington. We have so much to cover tonight. Breaking news. We'll bring it to you, of course. And Democrats showing their true colors. Oh, sitting on their hands during key moments of the State of the Union. So classless. I'll tell you what it really means. Plus, we're all waiting to see what's in that FISA memo. We have some breaking news, as I said, on that. And when this might be released, we'll get to that shortly. Also, talk about a document dump. Hillary Clinton released an apology for ignoring that sexual harassment of a staffer just moments before the president's big speech. And we'll talk to the parents of a teenager slain by MS-13 gang members the night after the president offered his family, their family, condolences. But first, the Democrats' rage against Trump's optimism machine. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Last night, in his first State of the Union address, the president delivered what was perhaps the most robust defense of American exceptionalism since Reagan.
The state of our union is strong. This, in fact, is our new American moment. You can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything.
Wow. Now, my question is, when we have this precious gift, liberty, that men and women fought and died for over the centuries, think about our flag, our country. Why wouldn't everyone believe that it's all worth protecting and preserving? That our traditions and the American people are worth protecting?
My duty and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber is to defend Americans, to protect their safety, their families, their communities, and their right to the American dream. Because
oh, now that last line sent the Never Trump media right over the edge.
You saw a divisive speech, the wedge issue of immigration, the scare tactics of MS-13. It was a speech delivered almost from an alternate reality.
You tell me
what about the
that room is supposed to respond like this to the great dictator?
I think the frame that they felt in the room was one that inflames the cultural divides.
Only over at that other cable network would defending Americans and America be controversial. Now, call me crazy, but I think most Americans love it when their president stands up for them, is a cheerleader for them. Trump looked past the desperate detractors and toward true American heroes. The officer who adopted the child of a woman on drugs. Families who suffered the death of children at the hands of MS-13. And by the way, we're going to hear from one of those families later on in the show. And that brave North Korean defector who escaped to help others do the same. The president celebrated our anthem, the military, families, and faith. And, of course, the creation of 2 million new jobs, employee bonuses, not crumbs, business investment, optimism, all good stuff. Trump is making things demonstratively better, and the Democrats are seething because of that. When they can't even bear to acknowledge the good, when they can't even feign the appearance of being happy at good news for American workers and American business, something is really wrong. It's gone totally off the rails. The Democrats, I think, have allowed their personal hatred of Trump, the man, to blind them to all the good that's happening around them. Now, look at this CBS Snap poll taken right after the president's big speech last night. 8 in 10 Americans who watched the State of the Union felt that the president was trying to unite the country. 2/3 said the speech made them feel proud. And 1/3 said it made them feel safer. But check out the Democrat reaction today.
The president's speech was a disappointment. and a missed opportunity.
What I consider to be the lowest point in the president's speech last night was when he says, Americans dream too.
It was dangerous what he said last night. What he is doing brings tears to the eyes of the Statue of Liberty.
Well, I don't know if Nancy should talk about tears and the Statue of Liberty, because that's a statue. The reality here is that by reflexively attacking Trump while providing no actual policy alternatives, Democrats undercut and undermine the public good. They call themselves progressives, but when there is actual progress, they recoil. Now, the left isn't afraid that Trump is going to fail. No way. They're afraid that he will succeed, and they're afraid that he is succeeding right now. I was thinking about this earlier today. I think their happiest moment, maybe since Roy Moore lost that Senate bid in Alabama, was when the stock market fell by 400 points yesterday. They were probably hoping that it would take another nosedive today, and that would be a permanent downturn. If America were a stock, they'd be shorting it. The Democrats went from hope and change to nope and strange. The Democrats are now officially post-American. They've become the grievance industrial complex, maybe a hodgepodge of leftist rage and hate with one goal in mind: to keep their voters angry and resentful. So when Trump issues a call like this, they become unhinged.
We can lift our citizens from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to prosperity.
Democrats don't want to hear that, and they certainly don't want you hearing it. All things considered, and it's hard to say this, but I really actually believe this, they want us weak and poor. Because when you're weak, you need them, and they think they can sell you on big government, and in turn, they have more power over your life. Now, let's face it. The Democrats' politics of bitterness, I think it's pretty much out of gas. And their post-State of the Union temper tantrums show us that Democrats have become the worst stereotype that they tried really hard to foist on President Trump. They're angry, unserious, and hateful. And that's the angle. Joining us for reaction in New York is Juan Williams. You see him weeknights here on FNC as co-host of The Five. And also in New York is John Bolton, former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. Juan, have at it.
Well, I was listening because I think that this was an opportunity for the president to reach out, to reach across the political aisle and bring us together. And I just don't see it. In fact, to me, this was an opportunity for a real debate about real policies. I don't think the president introduced any real policies last night. Instead, the people that you accuse of grievance and resentment, I think, are well represented by people who said, oh, we like this Trump speech because Trump says things like Americans dream too. Yeah, guess what? David Duke and the KKK love that. How about a kid, you know, collecting flags for a funeral, a cemetery? Oh, but guess what? That means that people shouldn't be able to protest if they feel there's police brutality, says Trump. They're not respecting the flag. Yeah. Come on, well, you see this as clear. You're so smart.
When I think of the left always lurching to David Duke, I mean, that's like so 4 decades ago. I mean,
I'm sorry, this is what he said yesterday. That's
David,
not 4 years ago.
I'm talking about him. He's irrelevant. No one cares about David Duke. Except this is again, you're making my point.
Okay.
Trump talked about family leave. He talked about the opioid addiction. He talked about protecting all Americans. He talked about the American dream being accessible with hard work, faith, family, and a belief in oneself. How does any of that seem divisive? Because he used the word American and America as many times as he did. I think, Juan, not you. I'm not talking about you. But I think there are a lot of Democrats who they reflexively recoil when he says something like Americans have dreams too. That's what most people feel. Their dreams have been neglected by politicians in both parties for years, while illegal immigrants and other identity politics groups are catered to. And what he said last night is we're all Americans. Doesn't matter
I don't
where
know
you
how
came
you get
from.
an argument about that, Laura. I think everybody feels that way. We're all proud Americans. The thing is, if you start to talk about the Dreamers in that way and say, "Oh, Americans are dreamers," if
well,
you
because
say,
American, it's our country.
Dreamers,
that's what he's talking about. It's our country.
He's separating us out and saying, "Oh,
right.
we have dreams, they have dreams," instead of dealing with real immigration reform and a real policy.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay,
John,
because that's what he didn't do.
Well, but Juan, actually what he has done is he's more than doubled his initial offer of 800,000 illegal immigrants to get amnesty, and now it's 1.8 million. Well, it's called compromise. He's not getting everything he wants, and Democrats aren't going to get everything they want.
In addition to the building the wall, $25 billion.
Okay, we'll get to that. The Democrats have offered no serious compromise at all. John, let's get to you on this. My point is the Democrats have left behind the idea of governing and governance, and they are in full resistance mode. And I think it's really telling when Clyburn said he reacted so negatively to the American Dreams line. Yeah. I can tell you, my listeners today on the radio, and they're not fans of David Duke, thank you very much. They love that because they think they've been neglected, and someone is finally speaking for them. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the poll that you cited showed that Americans understand Trump was trying to reach out. And I think the Democrats' reaction was really the proof that the Henry Wallace wing of the Democratic Party has now finally and conclusively triumphed over the Harry Truman wing of the Democratic Party. That they have pushed themselves so far to the left that it's hard to see how they're going to come back. There is no Harry Truman wing in the Democratic Party anymore. There's no Scoop Jackson wing. There's no Joe Lieberman wing. It's really very similar to what's happened in Britain with Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. And this is a prescription for them to take themselves into political irrelevance because working class Democrats, the people who voted for Ronald Reagan, many of the same people and their children who voted for Donald Trump in the industrial Midwest, are appalled by this kind of behavior. And the Democrats are bringing it on themselves. I think it was so revealing. You couldn't have scripted it better.
Juan.
Well, you know, by the way, I think that the ambassador's right about the parties going to the extreme, so that I think he's right. The Democrats are being driven to the farther left because of the antipathy towards President Trump. But also, remember, Republicans had a strong antipathy towards President Obama and were driven to the right. But when I look at this, and, you know, going back to what you were discussing at the top here, Laura, I look at President Trump coming out last night and saying, "I've got the biggest tax cut for you ever," and we both know that's not true. I look at what happened with the Black Caucus. You referenced Jim Clyburn not sitting on their hands when he talks about lowest
black unemployment.
Yes, and I think to myself, oh, I understand why Laura and Ambassador Bolton have that reaction, but I'm going to tell you my reaction, which is, wait a second. Unemployment for blacks and Hispanics has been going down since 2010. This guy comes in office for a year, and he wants to take all the credit as if somehow it was his policies that turned things around.
Yeah, but
that's a lie.
As if politicians who are in office for any period of time don't take credit for what's happened in the year previous. And
well,
I can say this.
If you want an honest debate, Laura, let's have an honest debate and not just grab all the credit for ourselves.
But Juan, when you see the public's reaction, in just a moment I'll play some callers to my radio show today. You see the public's reaction. You have to admit that the Democrats, they're out of step. And I think they're out of line. I really do. Substantive debate is great. And I think the Republicans, after when Obama came in, the Tea Party came to power in a way because they were debating Obamacare and the stimulus and the son of stimulus. It was a substantive debate on those issues, and then they had big wins in 2010 midterms. It was substantive. There was personal invective. There was some of that, but there was substantive. They didn't walk out on Obama. Joe Wilson yelled something. They didn't walk out. You know, you had Gutierrez yelling or making faces, and Joe Manchin kind of turned around at one point and looked at the Democrats, saying, "You guys aren't going to stand for this."
Well,
I just
you
want to play
mentioned Joe
quick.
Wilson. You just said it. Okay.
Yeah, one person. That's all I'm saying. It's not dozen people not showing up. Let's play this montage from my radio show today. Let's watch. Listen.
The Democrats actually seem the ones that are racist. You see where they say black unemployment, Latino unemployment went up. They're not happy about that.
I'm a very small business owner in West Virginia, and I was floundering at best under the Obama administration. I am thriving now.
I'm a Latino from Texas, and I just wanted to say that I'm proud to have a president that loves America finally.
It's great to have a president that's proud of this country, that wants to put Americans like me first.
John.
Look, I think Americans are very patriotic and with good reason, and it just completely confuses me why the Democrats get upset about it. But, you know, this is foreshadowed long ago. This is not an anti-Trump reaction on their part. Barack Obama was asked on his first overseas trip, do you believe in American exceptionalism? And he said the following: yes, I believe in American exceptionalism, just like the Brits believe in British exceptionalism and the Greeks believe in Greek exceptionalism. So while he says in the first third of the sentence, yeah, I believe it, so these right-wingers can't accuse me I don't, in the second third, he took it all away. How about Burkina Faso exceptionalism, Ecuadorian exceptionalism? The Democrats have a fundamental problem with the uniqueness of America. They didn't used to. Harry Truman didn't have any problem with it. He was a patriot. So the Democrats take this course. It's not a cultural war. This is something really that I think troubles Americans when they see that kind of reaction.
Juan, last word.
Well, no, I just think that when the president says that Americans believe in exceptionalism, I'm all for it. I also think that he was right, John, that other countries think that they're very special as well. But when I hear President Trump say things like, oh, you know, not only did I give you a great tax cut, but we've had such amazing growth, and he doesn't say, oh, yeah, China has more growth. Canada has more growth.
Whose fault is that?
India has more growth.
Dumb trade policy.
No, remember he said his
that.
policies were going to turn us around. I just think, John, at some point you got to wonder, is this just nationalistic rhetoric in order to gin up the base and not engage in what Laura asked for? Honest discussion of policies to move the country forward.
Well, China's just announced today they're moving a major solar company to the United States because of the tariffs that Trump just put in place. So
just remember this phrase, Juan.
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Blue-collar Democrats. Blue-collar Democrats.
And by the way, guys, thank you so much. And the FBI is not going to let the president release that controversial FISA memo without a fight. Up next, Professor Dershowitz.
Our national security lawyers in the White House that work for me, work for the president. They're slicing and dicing it, looking at it so that we know what it means and what it understands.
Did you see it?
I did.
What do you think?
It'll be released here pretty quick, I think, and the whole world can see it.
Now, Fox sources are telling us it could be released tomorrow, and Adam Schiff just tweeted out that it's his understanding that the memo that was sent to the White House for review was changed somehow by Devin Nunes. We haven't confirmed that. And so he's complaining that the whole committee did not approve that. That just was tweeted a few moments ago. But the FBI is fighting back against the release, as we said earlier, issuing a statement today claiming the omissions of some facts impact the memo's accuracy. You need the full context, they say. Let's discuss all this with former Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz in Miami Beach, author of the bestseller Trumped Up: How Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy, and in Atlanta, Chris Swecker. He's a former head of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division in Washington and someone who personally knows Director Christopher Wray and Special Counsel Bob Mueller. All right, Professor, let's start with you here. There seems to be these dueling leaks coming out today. Some leaks of information about Peter Strzok and the timing of his knowledge of the emails that were found, the additional emails in the fall of 2016. But for the moment, let's focus on the release of this memo. Given what we know now, do you believe this memo should be released, should see the light of day?
Absolutely, and also the context should be released. So both sides have their say. Let the public decide. Let's see the memo. If people in the FBI think it's out of context, let them release the rest of the material in context and let the public decide. And as far as, the Strzok issue is concerned, it just shows what happens when the FBI doesn't have a clear rule that says no discussing ongoing criminal prosecutions except to say indictment, no indictment, especially during an election. If, in fact, Strzok tried to delay it, it probably backfired, because if it had been released earlier, then maybe they would have been able to decide there were no more classified materials, and they would have corrected it earlier. So whatever impacted on the election, this should never, ever happen, and we have to have rules preventing it from ever happening again.
Chris, you know Mueller, you know Wray. Christopher Wray under some fire, although he was, hugely praised by both sides at his own confirmation as head of the FBI. And your sense of where this is going tonight?
Well, as John Q. citizen, I would love to see the memo. I would love to know if the FISA court was misled. I'd love to know if the FISA judge was aware that if the dossier information was included, that it was paid for by a political opponent. But the FBI executive in me, or former executive in me, says, let's play by the rules. Not like this. This is not how you release information from a partisan body like Congress. I just don't have any faith in congressional committees. I'm sorry. They've got their own agenda, and there's a process for releasing FISA information. I've used it. It's not that hard to use. There's a right way to do this, and I just like to see it done by the rules. You get in trouble when you start making up your own rules.
Well, what happens when the FBI makes up its own rules?
But I have to tell you.
What happens? Who's supposed to do oversight of the FBI?
I have to tell you.
Congress does the oversight of the FBI, and while they're amazing people at the FBI,
right.
If there was a political animus, as Professor Dershowitz has talked about on this show so often, undergirding the start of this investigation and the FISA application itself, we got a real problem on our hands with politicizing law enforcement in the United States. And I'm a huge defender of law enforcement. So you got a balancing act. Yeah, follow the rules. What if the FBI wasn't following the rules and they were off half-cocked? Professor.
Well,
Professor,
it's so refreshing to hear conservatives and Republicans questioning and overseeing the FBI. That's something that we liberals did for years and years and years. Now the Democrats are saying, oh, the FBI is beyond reproach. We should never question law enforcement. And the conservatives are saying, well, we need transparency. We need accountability. Look, everybody should be in favor of accountability by the FBI. And in my experience, at least 99% of the time, when people claim national security need for censorship, when it ultimately gets released, it was not really so important. It was overstated. Look, the movie The Post, obviously the Pentagon Papers makes that point. The government got up in front of the Supreme Court and said the country would fall if the Pentagon Papers were released. And they were released, and of course only positive came from it. So in general, I'm in favor of disclosure and full transparency. And sure, you follow the rules, but the rules ought to err on the side of disclosure rather than suppression.
And just for clarity purposes, Adam Schiff's tweet that just was sent out discovered late tonight that Chairman Nunes made material changes to the memo he sent to the White House, changes not approved by the committee. White House, therefore, reviewing a document the committee has not approved for release. And he attaches a copy of that document. So that's Chris, you can close it out, but you shouldn't, if that happened, and I don't know if it did or not, well, you can't materially change a document that the committee hasn't approved. I would assume that that's a no-no, but we'll have to learn more about that. Chris, you know Mueller, you know Wray.
Right.
You also know the facts as they've developed about the agents and the Peter Strzok doing both investigations, Hillary email, and Trump. You have confidence in the outcome of this investigation?
I do have confidence in the outcome. I know Chris Wray. I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt in this under these circumstances. Look, I'm all for disclosure. The FBI is not a bunch of snowflakes. They can take criticism. They can take oversight. They should be transparent. But in this case, Chris has come forward. Now, he was approved with the overwhelming vote of the Senate. Let's give him the confidence. Let's give him the credibility, and let's go with his recommendation at this point. And let's do it right. If there's misconduct there, let's refer that to the Inspector General,
they are. You
which
keep
is
saying
basically
let's do it
internal
right.
affairs.
They are doing it right. I mean, you act as if. I mean, again, I'm putting aside this tweet by Schiff. They have done it right. Correct me if I'm wrong, Professor. They went through the process of the committee reviewing this document, reviewing its contents for national security concerns. The Chief of Staff, the President, other FBI officials, read it over. Wray and now FBI officials say, no, this is a great issue of grave concern. That seems like, to me, it seems like a stretch. But I don't know. You keep saying do it by the rules. I think they have followed the rules. Again, setting aside this tweet that we can't confirm.
Just
Professor,
remember that constitutionally, the president has the authority The president has the authority to declassify anything. He is the ultimate authority on what can be declassified. And if he wants to see the memo out, nobody can really overrule that decision.
All right. And guys, thanks so much. And this brought tears to my eyes last night when President Trump offered prayers for our next guests. In just a moment, we're going to talk to the parents of a girl murdered by members of the
point of those lies is that she cannot admit that Bill does this stuff or that she knows about it and lets him get away with it. Because her entire political power is derivative. First ladies aren't elected. It's all derivative of being married to Clinton. And if the marriage is seen to be a sham and a fraud,
Professor
she
Dershowitz
is.
and a former
And
top
therefore she
FBI
will
agent.
do anything. Put up with any hypocrisy, any lie,
Professor Dershowitz and a former top FBI agent explained what the Bureau may have to fear. And this other story also kind of bubbled up today in the Guardian
brought to you by Liberty Mutual Insurance.
And it was like
Liberty
old home
stands
week
with
in
you.
Clinton's
Liberty
scandal-orama,
Mutual stood with me when this guy got a flat.
Cody Shearer, oh my gosh, that name is like Webb Hubble, Cody Shearer, the Mina airstrip, like all this stuff comes back. Cody Shearer supposedly wrote a second dossier, which kind of confirmed the first dossier, and that kind of blew up. And then, but our reporting indicates that there's no there. And so we're discounting what the Guardian reported today. However, give us a little background on this Cody Shearer and why anything he put together about Donald Trump could probably be dismissed summarily.
Well, Cody is one of the card-carrying original members of the Black Ops team that Hillary developed over the years to chase down and blackmail the women with whom Bill was involved to cow them into silence. Kathleen Willey very explicitly mentions him as part of that. And I believe that this was probably not the second dossier. I think this may have been the first dossier. I think that it's entirely possible that Hillary and her campaign people got Shearer to come up with these fantastic stories, which all major ones of which have been totally disproven. But they couldn't release them under Cody Shearer's name because he had no credibility. At one point, he was accused of negotiating a diplomatic solution in Bosnia, and it had to be repudiated by the U.S. government. And the press knows all about Shearer. You know all about him.
No. It's Black Ops.
So they needed to find someone with Black Ops. They needed to find someone with credibility to be the front man for that. And they may have chosen Christopher Steele because of his background in MI6. And it's also possible that the Brits played a role in this, working through Christopher Steele. You know, we wrote this book, Rogue Spooks, and predicted all of this. And about saying that there was basically a conspiracy against Donald Trump based in the FBI. And that
Deep State.
Deep
State's digging big holes. Dick, we're going to have you on radio tomorrow to talk more about this. So this is a fascinating development, and we're going to stay on this, of course. And by the way, Democrats are not only resisting the president, they're now resisting that things that actually define all Americans. Frank Luntz joins me next to analyze the words that wound. As President Trump delivered his State of the Union address last night, the visuals became a public relations nightmare for petulant, grumpy Democrats. Here are some of the things Democratic lawmakers signaled that they didn't like.
We proudly stand for the national anthem. The motto is "In God We Trust." We enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history. African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded, giving our veterans choice in their health care decisions.
Let's bring in Republican pollster, public opinion guru, Frank Luntz. He joins us from West Virginia. All right, Frank, the trigger words. I'm sorry, I was screaming laughing when things like "In God We Trust," and then they pan the crowd at the State of the Union. The Democrats are all sitting on their hands. What triggered them the most, and what drove them right over the edge?
Well, they didn't want to hear any success. So every time that Donald Trump pointed to a specific statistic, a fact about how things had changed in the last 12 months, you saw no reaction from the Democrats. Second is that any time that he suggested that he was going to reach across the aisle and find some sort of bipartisanship, they wanted no part of it. And third, it goes back to the promises that he made and the fact that he is attempting to keep them. I think it's a tragedy, quite frankly, that the Democrats don't realize that with Donald Trump's success, America succeeds. Laura, a lot of people criticize the Republicans under the Obama administration that they wanted him to fail. And yet now it looks like, and I think this is a tragedy for the country, that too many congressional Democrats want Trump to fail so they can take over the White House. But what does that do to the country? That's a real problem.
What was amazing is on the immigration issue, you had Trump going from 800,000 getting amnesty, Frank, to 1.8 million getting amnesty. And he said, look, people aren't going to get everything they want. That's compromise. I'm willing to compromise. Let's get this done together. It's like crickets, tumbleweeds were blowing through the Democrat section.
Well, this is something that the Republicans have to realize, that even, and I'm in West Virginia right now, and the gentlemen standing behind me, they're the reason why Donald Trump maintains his popularity and why he did so well last night. They feel listened to. They feel heard. And a lot of Americans felt left out until Election Day 2016. On immigration, the public has to understand that it doesn't look like the Democrats themselves are ready to compromise. And if you don't get this legislation that provides border security as well as a solution for DACA, if it doesn't happen, it won't be because of Donald Trump. It will be because of congressional Democrats.
Yeah, Frank, I thought you needed bodyguards for a second. I want those guys to travel with me. I'll travel with them. They look pretty strong. I love it.
I asked them the question, are any of these guys packing? This guy right here, he's packing.
All right. Okay, good. Okay, we'll leave it at there. Frank Luntz, thanks so much. We'll be right back. Stay right there.